It is my pleasure to welcome you all into this session as part of the 12th Conference for English Teachers Teaching English during COVID-19. Thank you for your participation. I am honored to introduce Professor Paul Stufkens. Professor Paul Stufkens is originally from Christchurch, New Zealand, but has spent the last 39 years in Honduras teaching EFL. He has been teaching in the English area at Zamorano Agricultural University for the past 31 years. He has a licentiate diploma in TESOL from Trinity College London. With you, Professor Paul Stufkens.
So, welcome to this presentation as part of the 12th International Conference for Teachers of English, Language Teaching during COVID-19. My name's Paul Stufkens and I'm from Zamorano University. Okay, there's a picture of our main building behind me. Okay, it's the main administrative building and the original building of Zamorano. Okay, so on this occasion, my topic is called Incorporating Climate Change into Online EFL and Content-Based Classes. So I'm an English professor at Zamorano. Okay, you may be professors at universities, teachers at high school or primary school or kindergarten or tutors of English, doesn't matter. We all teach English. And you're in this conference because obviously you're teaching English or you want to teach English. So the idea is to kill two birds with one stone, and that is to teach English, but incorporating in aspects of climate change into your English classes. So let's get this on the road. As you all know, and as this picture clearly illustrates, we are contaminating the air, especially. And by contaminating the air, we are causing or we are exacerbating, speeding up climate change and global warming. So what we need to do is to slow down, to reduce this climate change, which causes global warming. So the idea of this presentation is show you how to teach English and at the same time, teach your students, okay, how to live a better life and leave a better planet. So, as I said, we need to start making people, especially the young people, our students, aware that climate change is affecting the planet and of course us, especially them and their future children. And we also want to try to explain to them or teach them what each one of them and us can do. Doesn't matter what our age is. You can teach this from kindergarten through to adults. No change. Because in 2021, we've almost reached the tipping point. A tipping point is where we will have gone so far that we won't be able to get back up again. In other words, we will have contaminated our, especially atmosphere, so much, there's no turning back. There will be nothing more we can do. So we need to start now. And at this stage of the game, education is the best way we have of tackling this climate change. And the main thing is we have to make people aware of what's happening. So we can include climate change elements, okay, in our everyday English class lessons. Very easy. Let me show you how it works. Okay. And we need to focus on these because Climate change is already here. Maybe you haven't felt it, but it's here. Here out in the countryside, we have, especially in agriculture, we've got warmer temperatures, stronger hurricanes. The length of the growing season have changed. The lengths and the times, droughts, floods, and everything's getting worse. The longer we leave this, the worse it's going to get. And the sea level is going to rise higher and higher and higher, and therefore inundating parts of our coastal lands where a lot of our people live, both on the Atlantic and the Pacific coasts. So we need to teach people to explain what climate change is, the causes of climate change, the effects of climate change, and of course, the solutions. In other words, mitigation. We need to lower our levels of these greenhouse gases, okay? So we need to lower the emissions that we have of CO2 and methane and other gases, okay? Because these greenhouse emissions need to go down. Okay, so mitigate. Also the 5 R's. Maybe you heard of 3 R's. We got 5 now. Reuse. Don't just throw things away. Recycle them. Reduce your usage. Simply refuse. No. These days I go in a restaurant, they try to give me a straw. I reject the straw. Okay. And repurpose. In other words, change the things. Maybe we can give it a different use. So how are we going to do this? I'm going to show you at the different levels of English. So you can incorporate these in, as I said before, from kindergarten all the way to university. Let's start with the lower levels. Of course, lower levels, right? We'll start with vocabulary. So we can start teaching them vocabulary items associated with the climate and the weather. Now, in any English book, especially EFL book series you use, okay, they include this topic of the weather there. They don't necessarily talk about climate change, unless you've got a very, very recent book, but they talk about the weather. So we'll teach them, but just in case they don't, we teach them the adjectives of the weather: rainy, sunny, cloudy, overcast, windy. These are just some examples. There are a lot more. I'm just giving you some examples, okay? And the temperature averages, adjectives, sorry. Freezing, cold, cool, warm, hot, very hot. You can include muggy, although it's a higher level word. Okay, humid, right? Very warm. You can use a lot of different ones. Extremely hot. Okay. And then verbs. It's raining. Different types of rain. Okay. Spitting with just little droplets. Drizzling, light rain. Rain. And pouring, very heavy rain. So you can start by teaching them this. As I said, these words. As I said, they're a lot more than just this. These are just a sprinkling. Then, because your students are visual learners also, then we can use pictures. We can bring in images and photos to liven up the class. Now, in your books, these books are basically from Britain or from the United States, where there are 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn for British English, or fall for American English, and winter. However, we're in Honduras. And in Honduras, we don't have 4 seasons. We only have 2. Okay? And they are the wet season and the dry season. I've heard some people talking in Spanish about summer, okay, and winter. We don't have summer and winter. We have the wet season and the dry season, period. Okay, so these images, this is the wet season, dry season, and then these are the 4 seasons of the temperate climes. Okay, so you can use photos. There are plenty of photos. All right, so we've taught vocabulary. Now let's go on to a higher level and let's go to the questions. So normally you would teach the months of the year. You would ask, when is your birthday, Juan? When is your birthday, Juanita? Etc. Well, instead of doing that, we can link the months of the year to the climate. So what months are the wet season? What months are the dry season? So it gives you the same thing, still teaching months, but associating it with climate. Right? And if you like, winter, spring, summer, autumn, winter, although autumn, fall, okay? Although it doesn't really affect us here. And then go further in. And what's the temperature? What's the weather like today? What's the weather like now? What's the weather like outside? This is still very simple English. Now, as you go along in the course, you come to the past tense, the simple past tense with the verb to be. Well, now we can use it also. What was the weather like yesterday or 10 years ago? Maybe some of your students will be able to answer in simple sentences. So what was the weather like 10 years ago, Mario? Have you noticed any change between 10 years ago and now? So you can get them talking a little bit more. So these are just simple questions. Of course, there are a lot more. And actions. Now, when I was teaching beginner students and intermediate students, especially beginning levels, I would use these TPRs, these total physical response, okay, where you teach them to do something using all these actions. Well, here's some examples. I'm going to give you some examples of how you can associate climate change, make your students aware of climate change, and teaching them a simple TPR. For example, human sanitation. All right, the action, turn on. Now, tap is British English, faucet is US English. Okay, as you'll probably notice, I use British English because I was raised in New Zealand, and so we use tap rather than faucet. Okay, all right, so TPR. All right, 1, turn on the tap. Right, wet your hands. Turn off the tap. Grab the soap. Soap your hands. Put the soap down. Wash your hands or rub your hands with the soap for 20 seconds. Turn on the tap. Rinse your hands. Turn off the tap and dry your hands on the towel. So we've used a simple TPR, okay, to include the aspect of don't leave the water running the whole time. Now, years ago, I would turn on the tap, wet my hands, grab the soap, put soap on my hands, the water's still running, put the soap down, wash my hands, wash my hands, the water's still running, rinse my hands, and then I'd turn the tap off. Well, if you are from Tegucigalpa or San Pedro Sula or Choluteca, you will have experienced that in the dry season, you have water rationing. And I know in some parts, because I have relatives who live in Tegucigalpa, they can go 3 or 4 days without any water coming out of the taps or the faucet. So you can be teaching them, because water rationing is because of climate change. We don't have as much precipitation and much rainfall as years ago. We've been chopping down all our trees. And so we can be teaching our students how to do things ecologically, sustainably. The same thing as taking a shower. Okay, go into shower stall, close the shower curtain, turn on the tap or regulate the tap so you get the appropriate temperature water coming out. Wet your body. Turn off the tap. Okay, wash your body with soap. Turn on the tap. Rinse your body. Wet your hair. If you have hair, I still got a little bit. Okay, turn off the tap. Get the shampoo. Wash your hair. Wash your hair. Turn on the tap. Rinse, etc. All right, you get the idea. So we can teach them how to do something ecologically sustainable. Same as the hose, a garden hose. When you're watering the garden, okay, use a garden nozzle. I've got this down here, all right? Use the nozzle so you control the flow and close when not needed. A lot of these come with a trigger, okay? So, you pull it and you water, you let it go and it stops, okay? So we can teach them that. Also, for decades, I would brush my teeth one way. Whoops. I would brush my teeth. I would turn the tap on, wet my toothbrush, put my toothpaste on the brush, the water's still running, brush my teeth, the water's still running, brush my teeth, water's still running. You get the idea? Okay. So you can teach them that. Right? Next, other actions, electricity. In Honduras, we use a lot of petroleum, or bunker fuel, as let's call it, to generate electricity. Having a hot water shower uses electricity, a lot of electricity. Okay. Actually, in my house, we have a solar water heater and panel up top on the roof. So we're not using electricity, we're using the sun. And that's lowered our electricity bill tremendously. So in this case, turn off the light, or turn on the light, turn off the light or the radio or the TV when you leave a room. We're incorporating simple action with ecologically sustainable activities, okay? Multi-plug, turn on, off the multi-plugs when you go to bed, go out or go to sleep. You know, these little plugs, for example, if you have internet at home, you have a router with about 4 or 5 different little lights. You have the multi-plugs with maybe one light. The TV has don't know how many lights. Well, if you go to bed, well, turn everything off. Turn all those little vampire lights, as we call them, off. Okay, use efficient light bulbs. So what we're doing is we're doubling things. We're killing 2 birds with 1 stone, teaching English and teaching awareness. Okay, let's go to the intermediate level now. Well, we can raise the vocabulary, use higher level words like storms, hurricane, gale, tornado, blizzard, hail, etc. Although blizzard is more like for snowstorms. We don't get that here. Okay, floods and droughts, absolutely we get here. So you can raise the level of vocabulary. Now, activities. Well, no problem. Remember that this conference, the focus is on online teaching, virtual teaching, okay? So even when we go back to face-to-face teaching, where the students are sitting down, you're in front of the classroom, we can still do these. There's no difference. Remember, I told you, I've been doing this, these climate change for years and years, before COVID happened, before online teaching. I did it face-to-face. And what did I do? I just modified it to online. No problem. virtual teaching, virtual learning, no problem. It's not as good as face-to-face for me, but still effective. So for the intermediate activities, you can get the students doing internet searches in preparation for oral presentations. So you can put your students individually or in pairs or in small groups to present about topics. Now, very important. You don't need to know, you as the teacher, the professor, the instructor, the tutor, you don't need to know anything about climate change. Your students are going to learn about climate change and they'll teach you through their oral presentations. Hey, when I first started out giving these classes, I didn't know much, if anything, but through my students' readings, presentations, essays, I've learned a lot about climate change, okay? But I didn't do the work. They did the work and taught me. So they can go and do internet searches, prepare for their presentations, but how hurricanes form, why floods happen, the effects of droughts, okay? All of these things happening in Honduras, the causes of climate change, the cause of global warming, the effects of global warming, how to individually mitigate or reduce climate change, etc. Okay, so they can do a lot of these because online you'll find a lot of information even at the intermediate level. And also you can find readings at the appropriate intermediate level as well. There are, believe me, I've been doing this for years and I've found plenty at the intermediate level, special level graded readings about climate change, global warming issues. So they're there, you just have to look for them. Okay, let's go now to advanced. All right, no. So if any of you teach at a bilingual school, right, or you teach advanced or high intermediate, or for example, the Cepha scale, let's say B1 or B1 plus, well, you can get them to look at case studies. For example, about Hurricane Mitch and why Honduras suffered so badly. Okay, but Hurricane Mitch, well, that happened before some of my students were born. All right, forget Hurricane Mitch then. How about Eta and Iota? Everyone was born when they, all these students were born when those two happened. Okay, why did Honduras suffer so badly from them? So you can get the students to go online to find out this information. And then they present that to you as a written report, as an oral presentation. Doesn't matter. Another topic, worst human activities that cause climate change. They can look into this. They do the investigation and teach you, you learn. Right? Now, because I work at Zamorano, an agricultural university, well, agriculture and climate change. Because agriculture, I'll tell you, is one of the pushers, one of the promoters, if we can say, of climate change. Because there's a lot of contamination that comes with agriculture, especially air contamination, and water and land. Also, I ask my students, I give class at the moment to second and third year students. Now, my second year students, who are about 18 years of age, right? They've been just 1 year out of high school. And I asked them, so what are fossil fuels? And it's incredible that the majority don't know what fossil fuels are. So I have to teach them what fossil fuels are, or simply I get them to go online and tell me what fossil fuels are. You know, petroleum, coal, natural gas. Okay, so then a topic could be fossil fuels versus alternative methods. Which is better? Which is cheaper? The pros and cons of both. You could have a debate. You could split your class up, okay? And let's say 5 students will debate the advantages of fossil fuels and 5 will debate the advantages of alternative methods. Okay, oral presentations, debates, written essays, reports, doesn't matter. Also, because we're an agricultural university, we look at food security issues. Because of climate change, we are in droughts. California and the United States are in a long drought. Here in the dry corridor on the Pacific coast, we've been having droughts. Okay, so we look at food security, because if we have droughts, we don't have much food production. Not much food production, people go hungry. So you can associate all of these ideas. It's an English class, yes, but you can teach them climate change at the same time. Water security issues. I mentioned before, those of you living in Tegucigalpa especially, and even in San Pedro Sula, but especially Tegucigalpa, okay, water rationing. Every year there's water rationing, every year. Every year in the dry season, there's also electricity or power cuts. In fact, this year, there have been power cuts throughout the year, even in the wet season, when there's enough water to operate all the turbines in El Cajon or Francisco Morazan. And yet we're having problems. We don't have enough water, not enough rainfall. So that's why, okay, I told you before, right? Teaching your students water issues, how to save water, use water sustainably. So these are all different ways we can do this. All right. There are plenty of authentic readings on climate change. And here's something new for you, for most of you. CDRM, or Comprehensive Disaster Risk Management. So if we go back to Mitch or Eta and Iota, okay, we had disaster. It was a disaster. Now, please don't call it a natural disaster. Eta and Iota were not natural disasters. They were natural phenomena. Okay? They were natural phenomena. The disasters occurred because they were human-induced, man-made. Okay? There have always been hurricanes, always been hurricanes. It's not just now that we've got hurricanes, we've always had them, always. But the problem is, it's exacerbated by where our centers of population are. We are putting people on the coast. We are putting people in low-lying or depressions in the ground. Example, La Lima. That place gets flooded every year. Simply, it's not an appropriate place to build because it's very low down. It's like during Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, Louisiana. Hurricane Katrina flooded large areas of the city of New Orleans. And why? Because humans built their city below the sea level. We did. It wasn't the hurricane that caused the problem. We caused the problem by using inadequate building materials and building in the wrong places, putting people, hey, like on the North Coast, you have people living along the riverbanks in Tegucigalpa also. They live along the riverbanks. Every time there's a flood, what happens? Boom, they all get washed out. So these are not natural disasters, natural phenomena which lead to human-made disasters. So that comes with comprehensive disaster risk management. So we can look at how can we avoid these disasters? After Hurricane Mitch, I remember there was a law that said you could not build a house within something like 100 meters of a river, for example, 50 meters or 100 meters of river. As the years go by, since Mitch, people are building back by the rivers. Okay, so disaster risk management. And this is important because this brings into your English class this whole business of critical thinking, these critical thinking skills. And that's very important. So we can build up not only in advanced, but also in the intermediate levels, these critical thinking skills, right? So have an oral discussion or debates on climate change, the causes, the effects, okay, solutions, right? Which is this disaster risk management. Also, you can look at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals of 2030. And for example, put each group, right, split your class up into groups, and they can look at the different Sustainable Development goals. There are 17 of them for 2030. And they can look at and debate how realistic Honduras has of reaching any of these goals, right? And this, you just need to go online and look up, UN SDGs, and you'll find them. All right, now, the next one, and this is a fun activity. The footprint calculator. This is a free website here, and I'll show you how it works. Okay, it's a free website where you can work out all your students can work out how many tons of CO2 they're emitting into the atmosphere every year. And so they go to this website and they can work it out. Now I'm going to show you a couple of questions now, then I'll go to the website to show you how it works. All right, so there's a kind of question, how often do you eat animal-based products? And another one is, how much of the food that you eat is unprocessed, unpackaged, etc. Okay, so let us go here, and I'm going to change the share, and I'm going to go here. So make sure I'm here. Okay, so here we are on the website, the footprint calculator. And what do? We take the first step. All right. So how often do you eat animal-based products? Okay, so there's a bar here you can modify, right? Often, right? Very often, okay. Or add details. You can, right, go specifically. Beef or lamb. Okay, I'm going to put here. Pork, not as often. Poultry, oh, very often. Fish or shellfish, not that often. Eggs and cheese, oh, definitely. And then I'm going to save that, okay? And then I'll move to the next question. Same thing, okay? Using the calculator to adjust this, okay? To adjust this. Right? Or you can do it here, right? Doesn't matter. So you go through all of these questions, okay? Freestanding house, running water. All right. Mine is brick or concrete. There we go. All right, how many people live in the household? Ooh, that's 3. Size of your house, tiny? No, it's huge. No, it's not huge. It's let's say it's large. There we go. Okay. And yes, I have electricity. And okay, how inefficient? Oh, actually, it's mine is pretty inefficient, pretty efficient, because I have a solar panel on my roof, as I said, a water heater on my roof, solar water heater. Okay, etc. All right. And so you go through all of these. Now I'm just going to go quickly. I'm not going to change many of these anymore, right? Because I want to get to the results. The trash. Okay, so you got all these questions, and you just modify however it is. All right, I'm just exaggerating things here. How far do you travel on public transportation? Actually, very rarely. But here, look, you can the exact, all right, say how much it is. Okay, so let's exaggerate this. All right. Okay, each year, 6 hours, no, 40 hours, no. 20 hours, I'll put 10, 8 hours, there we go, whatever. Okay, then here, join the list and view my results. So skip to view my results. So I'm going to skip and I'm going to see my results. So, hooray, aha, that's better. Okay, your personal Earth overshooters, February, whoa, I'm a bad person. Okay, I've already used up all the resources. So if everyone lived like I did, like I live, we would need 6.5 Earths to just be able to supply our or my standard of living for everybody, which is obviously impossible. Okay, so we see that, and then we can see more specific details. So just put the cursor on here. We need 2 global hectares for the goods. How much do I need? I need 2.4 global hectares, etc. And here, for my way of living, I need 10.5 global hectares to survive. Here, because of my way of living, I'm putting into the atmosphere 17.3 tons of CO2 every year. Every year. Now, I've exaggerated some of the things I put there, right, on the calculation, right? If I did my calculation correctly, right, then I get an appropriate answer. And 50% is my percentage of total ecological footprint is 50% counts, right? Okay, so these are the things. And how do you feel? Okay. And that'll, what happened here? I don't know what happened there. Okay. Why can't I get it? So you can see the details here. How do I feel? I don't know why that didn't happen. Okay. And so then, here it is, shocked. Yes, I know some great solutions. No, I need help. So what can I do? And they can give you to learn more. Okay. So that's the carbon footprint. And so the idea is that you get your students to calculate their carbon footprints, individual carbon footprints, so they can see how bad they are or how unhealthy, unsustainable they are. And you can do it as well. You can compare your emissions to theirs. Okay, so this is what I do with a class that I call the Global Seminar. It's an advanced class. We're actually 4 universities from 4 countries. Zamorano from Honduras. There's a community college from the United States. We have Earth from Costa Rica, and we have a university from Sao Paulo. And there we discuss all these different topics, okay? Personal carbon footprint with the calculator, climate change, and the disaster risk management, water security issues, food security issues. So we go over all of these, okay? And our students discuss with the students from the other universities about all these issues. So we'll have my students representing, because my students are from 6 or 7 different countries throughout Latin America and the Caribbean, then my students, let's say, will take Central America or South America, for example. Costa Rica takes Costa Rica, or sometimes Africa, because they have some Africans in their classes. The United States, they'll focus on the United States. And then Brazil focuses on Brazil. And so there we see the differences between the different countries, and plus seeing what each of the different countries is doing. And so we have this interaction between these different students from different countries. Or if your students are just from Honduras, no problem, no problem. You could assign them different countries. You could say, okay, Mario, you're going to represent Nicaragua. Okay, Maria, you're going to represent Costa Rica. And Jacobo, you're going to represent Colombia, etc. And then they have to individually investigate about the climate change issues in their respectively selected countries, and investigate the water security issues and the food security issues in their selected countries. So this is a course I have because I have these connections with these other universities. And as I said, I've been doing this for years now. So in summary, we have to do something right now because there's only one planet. Now, as you saw my calculation, which was not a true calculation, right? My calculation, I was using 5 planets. I've had students who did a correct calculation. Now we're using 8.5 planets. None of my students were using less than 1 planet. Okay, so we have to save our planet and do it now. So we must all do our part, and you as teachers, professors or instructors or tutors of English can do this easily by meshing, by joining your English teaching with different aspects of climate change and disaster risk management. It's very easy to do. Okay, now I'm going to be, this is a asynchronous session, okay, because I'm not sure if I can be there or if I have problems. So what I've done is I've sent this in, so they're going to show you this, but I'm going to try to join up the meeting towards the end, okay? And if you have any questions or any comments, I hope to be there in the session, so I'll be able to answer you. However, if I'm not able to join the session, then, and you have any questions or comments, well, you can just send me an email at pstufkens@zamorano.edu. And here is the Zamorano website. But as I said, I'll try and be there for the last 10 minutes of the session so I can answer any of your questions or receive your comments. Okay? Now, as I said, all the information that the images, okay, you can get online. And in fact, all the images I showed you in this PowerPoint presentation were in fact from Outlook or from Microsoft PowerPoint stock images. So I didn't get anything from online. I got everything from Microsoft. So there's plenty there, right? Plenty there. So as I said, hopefully I'll be there and I can answer your questions in case you have any. In case I can't be there, I'll just talk for a couple more minutes. And that is that we each one of us needs to make a change in our way of living. We need to change the way we live. Now, we don't have to lower our living standards, but we can change the way we live. For example, I'm close to my work. I cycle to work when we're giving face-to-face classes, right? At the moment, I'm working from home. Normally, I would get on my bike and go to work instead of taking my car. When my wife goes to Tegucigalpa to do the shopping, she'll do shopping for 2 weeks. And any vegetable shopping we do here in the valley. So she'll try to minimize the number of times she has to go to do the shopping. Except for, as I said, vegetables and dairy products and stuff like that. But that's right here on campus. And so that's one way. Another way is, as I mentioned, turning the lights off when you're not using them. If you go out of a room, turn it off. If you're brushing your teeth, turn off the tap or the faucet while you're not using it. The shower, I turn the tap on and off about 4 times while I'm having a shower. Okay, we need to make these efforts to change. Recycle. I compost all my organic waste. I have a little compost bin behind my house, and it doesn't smell. Okay. We recycle here on campus. We recycle, or we put all our garbage into different recycle bins. So we recycle cardboard, plastic, aluminium cans, glass, paper, batteries. Okay, so we do our little bit. As I said, I have a solar water heater on the roof. You can invest in solar power panels on your roof. They're not that expensive, and they'll lower your electricity bill at the same time as helping the planet. Okay? So there are a lot of little things you can do. You can read outside instead of inside, and so not having the light on. Okay? You can do activities by changing slightly activities, right, to take advantage of the daylight. Okay, food. Instead of buying foreign food, well, you can buy locally grown food, which means it's traveled less, fewer CO2 emissions. And you can go online and find hundreds of ways on how to lower your personal carbon footprint and help the planet and help your kids or your future kids, your children and your grandchildren. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you have enjoyed the conference up to now and continue enjoying it. Bye-bye, and hopefully next time I can be there in person.